Actual reality and all this nonsense about people are racist because they're frustrated about their life is totally classist. What we're saying, only working class people are racist. Do me a favor. Racism was not invented by working class people. It was invented by elite academics through pseudoscientific nonsense and perpetuated as part of political policy from the top down, not the bottom up. In fact, if we look back at the history of this country, when there were slave catchers in the streets, people had far more allies in working class parts of London than they did from rich people who were trying to catch them and send them back to the Caribbean. So let's be honest about the history and deal with the bigger problems of structural racism, because then smaller things and smaller frustrations that are breeding this type of nonsense won't be excavated so much. But this is the problem, is we focus on nonsense like this rather than dealing with why a British soldier you've probably never heard of, a gentleman called Christopher Alder, died in 1999 in police custody. There is footage on YouTube that you can see for yourself of him on the floor with his bottom half exposed, with police officers around him making monkey noises over his dead body. You've never heard his name. Why?
History is a lie. How were Jews described in Europe before Ashkenazis became the majority? From Nature, Knows No Color Line by J.A. Rogers, page 123. Quote, Waite says, an interesting gradation of all shades down to the black is exhibited by the Jews. Especially dark were the Jews of Spain and Portugal. The Portuguese Jews were very dark, says Pritchard. The Duchesse de Brante, wife of Napoleon's ambassador to Portugal, said that the Jew, the Negro, and the Portuguese could be seen in a single person. So dark were the Jews, especially of Portugal and southern Spain, that many whites thought all Jews were black or dark. Another source can be found from The Natural History of Man by James Cowles Pritchard. Quote, the Jews of Portugal are very dark. More corroborating evidence can be found from the memoirs of the Secret Services of John Mackay, Esquire, published in 1733. Daniel, Earl of Nottingham, Secretary of State, is eldest son to Mr. Finch, Lord Chancellor in the reign of King Charles II. He hath also the exterior air of business and application, enough to make him very capable. In his habit and manners very formal. A tall, thin, very black man, like a Spaniard, or Jew, about 50 years old. We can appreciate that even in the 1700s, people from the British Isles recognized Jews to be of a dark complexion, like their Secretary of State, Daniel Finch, 2nd Earl of Nottingham. By the way, this is supposed to be a contemporary painting of Daniel Finch, Earl of Nottingham. This man is clearly of a fair complexion, not dark, like a Jew, as he is described. Just a little peek into the whitewashing of history. Finally, from Shakespeare and the Jews by James Shapiro.
Shakespeare and the Jews from James Shapiro. All right, and we're about on page 171 of this book, when William Brereton jotted down his impressions of the Jews in the synagogue in Amsterdam in 1635. Amsterdam, again, that's in the Netherlands, Holland, all right, the Dutch, this is a Dutch synagogue, Dutch people, right, Amsterdam, 1635. He's going to let you know that he noted that the Jewish men are most black. They're most black. The Jews. Who was the Jews? Again, who was the Jews that were in Amsterdam? Most of those Jews, all right, had fled from Spain and Portugal. Sephardic Jews who were what? Most black. It says, and when the Scottish minister Robert Kirk toured London in January 1690, he also paid a visit to the synagogue there. Now, this is a whole other different country. Right now, he's in England. Now, a whole different person, letting you know what he saw when he went in the synagogue, the Jewish synagogue in London, all right, in 1690. He observed over 200 Jews worshiping, 200, all right, 200 people, 200 Jews. He noted in his journal that they were all very black men. Again, Jews worshiping in a synagogue in London. They were what? All very black men. All very black men. Sephardic Jews. Who was in London as a Jew? A lot of these, again, were Sephardic, Moorish.
And if you read, I'm going to pause so you can read the other wordings, because he's highlighting the point of the skin color, but it's interesting to read the entire passage. It's interesting to read the entire passage because he talk about that they were given unto the women, drawing here on contemporary prejudices linking blackness, right, to licentiousness. Okay, now it says, and when the Scottish, and when the Scottish minister Robert Kirk toured London in January 1960. He also paid visit to the synagogue, where there he observed over 200 Jews worshiping. He noted in his journal that they were all very black and indistinct in their reasonings as gypsies. By the end of the 17th century, works like the English translation of Francois Maximilian Mission's A New Voyage to Italy make clear that it is a vulgar error that the Jews are all black. So you notice what he saw, and then by the end of the 17th century, English translation of Francois Maximilian's Mission's New Voyage to Italy now makes it clear that it is a vulgar error that the Jews are all black. So from establishing what you saw to now trying to downplay it. But let's continue.
Jews from Portugal and Spain. A lot of these were Huguenots, so-called Huguenots.
Like and share for more lost history.